key to building up the middle class. In the Commonwealth, we know how important it is to have someone in office looking out for workers' rights and protections. When I look at my options this coming election, it's clear to me that there's only one candidate on the ballot that is fighting for me and my members and all of you. I'll give you a hint. It's not the guy that's in the pocket of the billionaires. From New York City to Atlantic City to Washington, D.C., Donald Trump's history is filled with undermining workers. He has never had to work a job that came with calluses or paid an hourly wage. That's right. His disastrous presidency, if you can call it that, clearly shows he holds the worst record since the Great Depression. He spent more time shipping union jobs overseas and attacking workers' rights than creating opportunities for you and me. Under Donald Trump, Pennsylvania lost over 275,000 jobs. Trump's Project 2025 agenda, yeah, boo that, would give Donald Trump nearly unchecked power, meaning there would be almost no guardrails during a second Trump term. Trump will use his power to limit overtime pay and roll back worker protections and put an end to collective bargaining as we know it. And while giving ultra-wealthy companies even more power to fire workers who attempt to organize. It's plain and simple. Donald Trump is a scab. On the other hand, Vice President Harris is charting a new way forward. Vice President Harris was raised by a working mom in a middle-class home. She believes that when the middle class is strong, America is strong. That's why throughout her career, she has consistently stood up for workers' rights. She fought against corporate greed and stood shoulder to shoulder with unions across this country. Her opportunity economy will work for all of us, not just the ultra-wealthy. She will give workers the rights and tools to not just get by, but get ahead. She will restore and expand the child tax credits for families. She will cut taxes for frontline workers up to $1,500 a year and save families an average of $700 on their health insurance premiums. She will also work side by side with our good friend and former union member, Tim Walz. Not a scab like J.D. Vance, who just this week crossed a picket line held by striking Pittsburgh Post-Gazette workers who've been on strike for over a year. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz have always looked out for us, and we need to do everything we can over the next 9 days to make sure they win this election. We need to knock on doors. We need to make phone calls. We need to empower our friends and our family who will listen to vote. This race is close, and we need all of you to hit the pavement and get us across the finish line. If you haven't already voted, make a plan. Go to iwillvote.com and make your plan. Your voice, your vote is your voice, and now is the time to use it. Thank you. and it is now my honor to introduce my good friend, the Secretary-Treasurer of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, Maurice Cobb.
Good afternoon, Pennsylvanians. So I'm the last one in between you and seeing Bernie Sanders. I'd like to thank Local 520 for hosting us here today and making sure we have a space to gather so we can do some of this advocacy work here, get out and knock some doors after this. But I'd like to thank all of you that are here, that are volunteering your time. I know there's a lot of other places we'd like to be on a Sunday afternoon like today, but you're here for a common goal, and that's to get Tim Walz, Kamala Harris across the line, elected as our next vice president, or president and vice president. So, my name is Maurice Cobb. I'm a steel worker, I'm a veteran, and I'm also blessed and thankful, grateful to be the Secretary-Treasurer of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO. And the reason why I say blessed is because I get to represent 700,000 members in Pennsylvania, a lot of whom are in this room, from 51 different international unions and sectors that cover all across Pennsylvania. So I'm looking around this room and I see a lot of our members, and I know, all of you know, that being a union member isn't just about the paycheck. It's about putting food on the table. It's about being able to send your kids to college. It's about being able to take a piece or get a piece of that American dream. So I've had the opportunity to see a lot of that American dream for a lot of Pennsylvanians that have had the chance to retire, had a chance to get ahead, buy that first home, get a new vehicle, with good health care, good safety at their jobs. But I've also personally seen where that union dream was taken away. Under Donald Trump's administration, union protections were unapologetically attacked. And he has doubled down on that. He's not backing down on that. He's not changing anything from what he's done in the past. If it wasn't, during his administration, if it wasn't just enough for people to be worried about their safety at a workplace or their protections under their collective bargaining agreement, he's also made it to where people are worried about getting paid just for their overtime. He's publicly bragging about how he skipped and gypped people out of paying them for their overtime, which in Pennsylvania is a law. So under this Project 2025 agenda, he has in there that he wants to make it to where companies have the opportunity to not pay you for overtime that you're due. Exactly. Like I said, he's doubling down on this. And his running mate, J.D. Vance, that guy, has openly endorsed, or I should say opposed, the PRO Act. Now, the PRO Act is what guarantees our right to organize, bargain collectively, and for our fair right to overtime. I say enough is enough. How about you? This election, we have one choice, and that's one choice only. And who is that? All right. So they know, both of them have outstanding records. I won't bore you with. I'm sure Bernie's going to touch on plenty of them. Both of them have outstanding records, and they've made sure and they've fought for all the industries that are the backbone of Pennsylvania. That's our steel. That's our manufacturing. That's our energy sectors. That's what runs America, or Pennsylvania, excuse me. They know unions are the backbone. While Trump and his team push the agenda that strip away at union rights and undermine everything workers have fought for generations before me and all of you in this room. Tim Walz has passed the most pro-worker agenda that we've seen at a state level as governor of Minnesota. Kamala Harris went after corporations committing wage theft just to make sure we all get treated fairly at our workplaces. They understand the working family, and they deserve and they have the record to prove it. Donald Trump had his chance, and he screwed us. Let's be frank about it. And nothing's changed. Like I said, his rhetoric is the same. If we give him a chance, he's going to do it again. So let's choose leaders that are going to fight for us. Let's choose Tim Walz, Kamala Harris for president and vice president. I love the energy in this room. Together we can build a future that our kids are going to be proud of. And like I said, I'm the guy that's standing between you and who I'm assuming most everyone is in here to see today. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. I'm sure everyone here knows exactly who he is, a man that needs no introduction. Someone who is a loud and proud supporter of workers, labor's agenda, and the leadership of our movement. He's a true advocate for every single person in this room, a person who's not afraid to stand up to the billionaires, stand up to the large corporations, and stand up for all of us. That's why I'm so excited to introduce him here today. Please help me in welcoming Senator Bernie Sanders to the stage.
Whoa! Thank you! What a fantastic turnout! I think we're going to have to knock down some of the walls in the back. All right, Maurice, thank you very much for what you're doing. And let me thank you, brothers and sisters, for inviting me to be with you today. One of the most exciting developments that has taken place in this country in the last couple of years has been the growth of the trade union movement, the militancy of the trade union movement, and the willingness of trade unionists to take on corporate greed. You guys are doing great. You are doing great. You really are. You're an inspiration to the American people. There is a reason why in recent polls, something like 70% of the American people support the trade union movement, a higher number than we have seen for a long, long time. So I know that you're seeing a lot of folks coming to Pennsylvania in recent days. And no great secret why. And that is the presidential election, the most consequential election in the modern history of our country, may well be decided by a few thousand votes right here in your great state. So my message to you is, please, in the next 9 days, do everything that you can to drag your friends, co-workers, aunts, uncles, everybody else out to the polling booth. Let's elect Kamala and Tim as the next president and vice president. Now, I grew up in a working class family, and in my childhood, and what I saw in terms of the stresses and pains that my parents experienced, that has been the major influence on my political views. But before I get to economics, which is what I want to focus on and why this campaign and this election is so important for working class people throughout this country, I want to just say a few other words about Donald Trump. I will be brief on Trump, not worth a whole lot. But this is what I do want to say, and I want to speak now to the folks in Pennsylvania who do not necessarily agree with me. I got that. There are a lot of conservatives out there. Fine. It's a democracy. We have different points of view. But please understand there is a reason why a very conservative guy by the name of Mike Pence, who was Donald Trump's vice president, by his side for 4 years, Pence is not voting for Trump because he knows who Trump is. He knows that Trump is unfit to be president of the United States. John Kelly, a former Marine general, chief of staff. Chief of staff is the main guy. That's your main guy. When you're the president of the United States, when you're a senator, that's what, very important position. John Kelly, Trump's chief of staff, is not supporting Donald Trump for president because he understands that Trump does not believe in the foundations of American democracy, that Trump is a pathological liar. Mitt Romney, who was the 2012 Republican candidate for president of the United States. Mitt's on my committee. We disagree on everything. But Mitt has moral perspectives and religious points of view. He understands that Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States. So I would say to my conservative friends out there, think about why all these people who are close to Trump, former leaders in the Republican Party, do not want to see Trump returned to the White House. And I would say also, and I speak as a parent of 4 kids and a grandparent, the grandfather of 7, I want you also to think, in these days, it is not so easy to raise kids. And all of us, whether you're conservative, progressive, moderate, whatever you may be, we try hard to instill in our kids the sense of honesty. Be honest. Tell the truth. Don't lie. Don't be a bully. Don't pick on that kid in your class who may be different. That's not cool. And I want you to explain to your kids what it will mean. I want you to think what it will mean for your kids if we have as the leader of this country somebody who lies all the time and somebody who is a bully and somebody who is trying to divide us rather than bring us together. So to my conservative friends out there, and I have conservative friends, yeah, we disagree on policy. But in terms of what a president of the United States should be, please think hard before you vote for Donald Trump. And I want to talk a little bit about economics now. There are millions of workers throughout our country today who are earning starvation wages. Most of them do not belong to unions. Many of them live in rural communities. I'm embarrassed to tell you what is true is that the federal minimum wage, as you know, is $7.25 an hour. That is a disgrace. And it really appalls me, really does, that a bloody billionaire thinks that $7.25 for a minimum wage is good enough. So if you need one reason to vote for Kamala, understand that she wants to give many millions of American workers who are now struggling at horrendously low wages, she wants to give them a significant pay raise by raising the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. And as you heard a few moments ago, Donald Trump came to Erie, Pennsylvania a couple of weeks ago. That's a really amazing thing. He gets up there and he says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, he gets up there and he says, when I was in private business, I hated to pay overtime. That's what he said. And I would go out, that's what he said, go out and hire people, extra people, so I didn't have to pay time and a half. Now, aside from being in violation of the law, just in passing, you can't do that. Think about what that means. Think how many millions of American workers depend on that time and a half to put food on the table and to pay the rent. But Trump was not just talking about what he did as a private businessman. It reflected what he in fact did as President of the United States. He cut back on Obama's rules, which grew the number of people eligible for overtime pay and time and a half. Fortunately, Kamala and President Biden did away with what Trump did and in fact expanded the number of people eligible for time and a half. And then there is the issue of unions. You heard about that a moment ago as well. The good news is that all over this country, working people increasingly understand that if they want decent wages, they want decent benefits, they want decent working conditions, they have to join a union. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that in every sector. It's an amazing thing to see. You know, you think of unions, blue-collar guys? Yeah, blue-collar guys. But you're seeing it on adjunct professors in college. You're seeing it with nurses. In my city of Burlington, residents, MDs who were residents, they work at 80 hours a week, couldn't do their job. We helped them organize a union. Young people at Starbucks all across the country organizing unions. So the good news is working people, blue collar, white collar, and every other color, they want to join a union. The bad news is that the corporate world understands that. And they are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every year hiring anti-union consultants and lawyers and everybody else to make it difficult for workers to exercise what is in fact their constitutional right to form a union. So what does it mean? Oh, you're active in the union, by the way, you're fired. You were late 3 years ago, you're out of here. And we're going to take you to a compulsory meeting, back door there, you got to go, and we're going to tell you how terrible the union is. Oh, by the way, your factory goes with the union, we'll move it to China next day. Good luck to you. So all of that stuff is illegal. And that is why we are fighting very hard to pass what's called the PRO Act. You all know what that is. And I know the Republicans now, you know, JD and the others are trying to say, well, we're a party, we're concerned about workers. Let me tell you this. I am chairman of the committee in the Senate that deals with labor issues. We had a vote, and for the first in committee, and for the first time in the history of that committee, we voted to get the PRO Act out of committee and onto the floor. And it turns out there are 21 members of that committee. The vote was 11 to 10. Not one Republican voted to support the PRO Act. On that same day, we voted to do what people in every other major country on earth have. It's to make sure that workers in America can have at least 7 guaranteed days of paid sick leave. Not a radical idea. Again, vote 11 to 10. We voted to say that in America, women should receive the same pay for equal work as men. Vote 11 to 10. So anyone tells you that the Republicans are going to stand up for working people is not telling you the truth. Now let me say this. We have got to do everything we can in the next 9 days to elect Kamala, but I am here to tell you something that other politicians will not tell you. And that is, on the day after Kamala wins, we don't sit down and stop our struggle. Because I can tell you, without any fear of contradiction, that right now we are seeing the billionaire class exercise a level of greed that we have never seen in the history of this country. You know, all of us know people who are dealing with drug addiction, we're dealing with alcohol addiction, maybe with food issues. And yet this billionaire class, which has never, ever had it so good, they can't stop themselves. They are addicts. They want more and more and more. And if they have to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and education in order to get another damn tax break, that is precisely what they will do. Just today there was a study that came out that in this election, right now, as we speak, the billionaire class itself has put in almost $700 million. So it's not enough for them to own the economy, and we have more concentration of ownership than we have ever had. They also want to own our political process. You believe in democracy, and I believe in democracy. And what we have got to do, if we're going to create the kind of government that represents all of us and not just the few, we got to get rid of the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. That's right. Democracy is one person, one vote, not a handful of bloody billionaires buying both political parties. So let me tell you what's going on in the economy today, and you already know this. You know, the American people are angry, and my plea to people who are angry, you have a right to be angry. But when one gets angry, it's important to take your anger out in the right direction. Don't pick on people who are even worse off than you are. All right? You want to be angry, then understand that today the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. You want to be angry, understand that Elon Musk and a few others, 3 multi-billionaires, own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You want to be angry, understand that we have more concentration of ownership in our economy. In every sector of our economy, you have a handful of large corporations owning more and more, determining what workers will be paid and what prices we will pay. And when people talk about inflation, check out corporate profits in recent years. And when you talk about greed, understand that today, the CEOs of major corporations who fight every union trying to get a decent wage increase, somehow they can afford paying their CEOs 300 times more than their average worker. So what we are taking on, man, it ain't easy. We're taking on people with enormous wealth, enormous power, economic power, and political power. And as part of what they have managed to get is we have a tax system in which the billionaire class is paying an effective tax rate lower than truck drivers or nurses. Today in America, while the very richest people are getting richer, what else is happening? You tell me, how working class people doing? They're struggling. So in the richest country on earth, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Can you believe that? 60%. Now, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. All right, you tell me, because what is it like? What does it mean, living paycheck to paycheck? Anyone have any thoughts on that? Just stand up. Well, I know it sucks. All right, give me examples of what it means. Okay. All right, let's deal with that one. All right. Living paycheck to paycheck, you got nothing in the bank. That's the definition of paycheck to paycheck. You have some crappy insurance program with a $12,000 deductible. Your kid gets sick. You get sick. What do? You may delay going to the doctor. All right. I've talked to doctors all over this country, Vermont, all over this country, and they tell me people come into their offices much sicker than they should be. And the doctor says, well, why didn't you come in when you first felt your symptoms? Well, I don't have any insurance, or I can't pay out of pocket. I don't have enough money. We don't talk about this. 60,000 Americans die every single year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. All right? Paycheck to paycheck, people are afraid to not only afraid to go to the doctor, they're afraid to take an ambulance. You know, we've heard stories where people can't take an ambulance because they're worried about the thousands of dollars. Can't go to an emergency room. Got a pain in your heart. I can't go to the emergency room. You want to hear something insane? Don't get me going on to the healthcare system. We'll be here for a long time. All right. We spend twice as much per person on healthcare as any other country. Okay? 25%. Think about this for a second. 25% of people who undergo cancer treatment, okay? You get cancer, you undergo chemotherapy, other treatments. 25% of people undergoing cancer treatment in this country go bankrupt or financially deplete all of their savings of their family. Can you think about that for a second? Think about somebody saying, oh my God, I've been diagnosed with cancer. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? What is chemotherapy going to do to me? Very difficult, painful circumstance. And then those people are going to worry whether or not they're going to destroy the finances of their families. That's what living paycheck to paycheck is about. Ending up in the hospital with a $100,000 bill and knowing how in God's name you're going to ever pay off that bill, what it's going to do to your credit. And by the way, one of the very positive things that Kamala is talking about is getting rid of all medical debt in this country. Okay. But living paycheck to paycheck, and we don't talk about this very much, and there's a reason why you got a corporate media owned by billionaires. We don't talk about these issues. But living paycheck to paycheck is not just about health care. It's not just worrying that if your landlord says, hey, Mary, I'm sorry, I got to raise your rent by 20%. Well, Mr. Landlord, I can't afford that. Well, you're going to have to move out. But I got a kid in a local school. Well, I'm sorry, Mary, that's what goes on. So it's not about housing. It's not about whether or not you can afford the groceries that you need. It's not about the health care. It is also the issue of stress. All right? We never talk about it. But I want to talk about two things. Number one, despite spending far more than any other country per person on health care, we're spending over $13,000 per person, which happens to be unsustainable. But above and beyond that, our life expectancy is lower than other wealthy countries, significantly lower than Japan, Europe, and so forth, Canada. And what's even worse than that, which we never talk about, is if you are working class in this country, you're going to live 5, 10 years shorter lives than the 1%. In other words, being working class in many respects is a death sentence. Why is that? Why do working class people die at a younger age? And it's not just health care. Health care is important. Stress. All right, talk about that. Tell me what that's about. What does that mean? All right, stand up here, ma'am. There you go. You're on TV. 48 million people are watching you. What do you got to say? All right, what about? And what does it do to you physically and mentally? All right, who wants to add to what she said? Yes, sir. All right, I'll come back and see you 5 years from now. All right. Look, all right, here is what the story, you heard it from the woman. I mean, thank you both. All right, she's a single mom, struggling, wants to pay the bills, doesn't have the money to pay the bills. So you're worried, what is going to happen if I don't pay the bills? Am I going to go bankrupt? What's going to happen to me? Gentleman here, stage 4 cancer, with other knows people who have cancer. When you, as he just said, it's quite enough dealing with cancer, right? That takes a lot out of you, all right? You should not have to worry about the financial implications of that. And what I want you all to know, again, the media doesn't cover this at all. We are living in the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a human right. Now, Medicare for all is not going to solve all of the problems, but think for a moment what it means that when you get sick, you go to the doctor. You don't have to worry about the bills. You know, you live not far from the Canadian border. You talk to my Canadian friends, end up in a hospital for a month. In this country, it costs you $500,000. They don't get a bill. And they spend half as much as we do per capita. And the reason for all of that, brothers and sisters, is the function of the American healthcare system is not to provide quality care to all people. It is to make the insurance companies and the drug companies billions of dollars every single year. Now, taking on these guys, I'm chairman of this committee. I know this stuff. We're taking on the drug companies, trying to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Taking on the insurance companies. It ain't easy. The drug companies alone, you want to talk about power? There are 535 members of Congress, 435 in the House, 100 in the Senate. There are 1,800 well-paid lobbyists, former leaders of the Democratic and Republican Party, working for the drug companies. And what's their goal? To make sure that you pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Well, I'm happy to tell you that under Biden and Harris, we're making some progress. If you're a senior now, you're not going to be paying more than $35 a month for insulin. We've lowered the price from many manufacturers for asthma inhalers. Big deal. If you are a senior come January of 25, no matter how many prescription drugs you take, you're not going to have to pay more than $2,000 a year out of pocket. And most importantly, for the first time in American history, President Biden and Vice President Harris have had the guts to take on the power of the pharmaceutical industry, and Medicare is now negotiating prescription drug prices, going to lower prices. You know, it's an issue that has been popping up recently. It's popping up in the Boeing strike. Some of you may know our brothers and sisters who work for Boeing are on strike right now. And popped up in the UAW strike. And what the issue is defined benefit pension plans. All right? I remember doing a hearing. We had a young woman who she was with the UAW, and she said, you know, my father and my grandfather all worked in the automobile industry. She said they retired with good pensions, a defined benefit pension plan. They knew what they were going to get, not me, not me. So unions are beginning to understand there's something wrong with half of older workers in America have virtually nothing in the bank. Talk about stress. All right, be 60 years of age, nothing in the bank, and you're facing retirement year. Republicans talk about cutting Social Security. All right? We need to rethink, once again, defined benefit pension plans. If you work your whole life, you should be entitled to a decent, secure retirement. And I do find it amazing. That many of these corporate CEOs, you know, they work for 5 years and they get this golden parachute, $50, $100 million in retirement up the kazoo. And yet they fight tooth and nail to make sure that workers cannot retire with security and dignity. And while I'm on the subject of Social Security, let me say a word about that. At a time when 25%, I just learned this last year, it kind of blew me away, I don't know if you know it. 25% of seniors in America are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. You tell me how anybody can survive on $15,000 or less. Half of seniors trying to get by on $30,000 or less. And given that reality, some 80% of Republicans in the House have made it clear that they want to cut Social Security benefits. Well, you and I have a slightly different idea. We are not going to cut Social Security benefits. We are going to expand Social Security benefits. How do we do it? How do we do it? What? Right now, we have an absurd funding mechanism for Social Security. You make $168,000 a year, you make $16 million a year, you both contribute the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. If you lift that cap, you can start wherever you started. We started at $250,000, you can go higher. You can significantly increase benefits for Social Security recipients. My bill would have increased it by $2,400 a year, and, equally important, extend the solvency of Social Security for the next 75 years. Now, Kamala has come up with a plan that I think is very important. Doesn't go quite as far as I would like, but it's good, all right? She wants to expand Medicare to cover home health care, vision, and hearing. That's a big deal. All right, right now, all over this country, you have seniors and people with disabilities who would like to live out their lives in their own homes with their families around them. But families cannot afford the help that they need in terms of home health care. And many of these folks are forced to go into nursing homes where they don't want to go. All right, so Kamala's plan would expand Medicare to cover the cost of home health care, a huge deal. And in addition to that, she knows there are millions of seniors can't afford hearing aids, can't even afford a pair of glasses. So she wants to have Medicare cover that. Now, I would have added to that what I would like to see is dental care as well. All right. I'll tell Kamala you said that. Am I right? All right. Yeah. I spend half my life at the dentist, outrageously expensive, if you could find a dentist. All right. So we got to do that. All right, let me conclude by just saying this. It is enormously important for so many reasons. Democracy, women's right to control their own bodies, climate change, Trump perhaps should speak to the people in Florida and North Carolina about what's going on there before he thinks that climate change is a hoax. All right? All right? But what we have got to do is to understand the reality of the American economy and American politics today. And it's not a good story. And I am not here. I am the longest serving independent in the history of the United States Congress. Now, I caucus with the Democrats because they are far, far better on all of these issues than our Republicans. But I would be lying to you if I told you the Democrats were doing all that they should be doing to stand up to corporate greed, so what we have got to do is defeat Trump for so many reasons. We have to elect Kamala, and then what we have to do, and I got to tell you, I don't mean to put so much pressure on you, but it's the trade union movement that's going to lead the way. Who else has the people power, the organizational capabilities, and the money to stand up to corporate greed? You think the average worker can't do it? The average worker is disgusted. What power does he or she have? What we have always known is that in solidarity is power. When we stand together, we win. When we're isolated, we lose. So I think what we have got to do is build a broad-based political grassroots movement around the trade union movement. Whether you're black, you're white, you're Latino, Native American, gay or straight, it doesn't matter. We are united in understanding health care is a human right, not a privilege. We are united in understanding that we should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. We are united in understanding that our kids should be able to get a higher education, whether it's college or the training they need to be a plumber or a pipe fitter, without having worry about going into debt. We are united in understanding that people cannot continue to afford to pay higher and higher prices for housing. We need to build millions of units of low-income and affordable housing. And what I want to tell you, every day Donald Trump is out there saying, Bernie Sanders and his far-left agenda. Well, I got news for you, Donald. Health care for all ain't a far-left agenda. It's what the American people want. Taxing your billionaire friends so they pay their fair share is not a far-left idea. It's what the American people want. Expanding Social Security and Medicare, not a far-left idea. It's exactly what the American people want. So, brothers and sisters, I do not have a PhD in mathematics. Barely made it out of college. But I do know that at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a bigger number than 1%. So our job is not to let Trump and his demagogic friends divide us up by the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation or our gender. We have got to bring our people together around an agenda that speaks to the needs of working families and is prepared to take on the greed of the 1% and the corporate world. Brothers and sisters, keep up the great work. Thank you for having me.
It's just a party, baby. Come on.